Hey, everybody, welcome to the Modern Customer Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Morgan. Today, I am talking with Chris Goossens, the Senior Vice President of Customer Experience for FedEx Express Europe. What is the difference between customer experience in Europe and the US? In this show, you're going to find out. We're going to talk about Chris's more than 4,000 team members across 30 countries. We're going to talk about FedEx's approach to innovation, while they can meet the customer expectations while thinking about how they can reduce cost to serve, something on the mind of everybody listening to this podcast. Please enjoy Chris Goossens. This week's episode is sponsored by Calendly. Customer success teams strive to provide superior service, but customer expectations are continuously increasing. It's a challenge to efficiently schedule handoffs, onboarding calls, training sessions, renewal conversations, and more. That's why modern customer service teams use Calendly to interact with customers at key milestones. Instead of scheduling delays that create a disjointed experience, Calendly makes it easy for your team to focus on building partnerships and maintaining engagement through renewal time. That's why CI Ascent Wealth saw a 323% ROI using Calendly. See how Calendly can help your team drive adoption and increase retention and growth at calendly.com/moderncustomer. Chris, welcome to the Modern Customer Podcast, all the way from Amsterdam. So really, I should be saying good evening. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing amazing because I get to talk about something I'm really passionate about, which is customer experience. Tell our audience how you came into the role as being the Senior Vice President of Customer Experience for FedEx Europe.
Well, actually, I was part of the board of the company that FedEx acquired in 2016, and that company was called TNT. And TNT was really known for its customer-focused culture. It was the first company that won the business award for total customer focus. So when the acquisition happened, FedEx asked me whether I wanted to join, and I did.
So you are responsible for 4,000 employees across 30 countries. That's quite a lot of employees to manage. How are you helping to enable them to thrive during a time when many frontline workers are just struggling these days?
Well, our teams have had a really, really rough time because when everyone was locked down, the internet frenzy started. So we had a boom in e-commerce and, of course, also therefore a peak in activity, which business-wise is very good. But for our team members who had to also adjust working from home, it was quite an adjustment. But I have to say I'm really blessed. I have a great team of people who are very, very passionate in delivering on the promise, which is deliver the purple promise for FedEx. And they're doing their best day in, day out. Now, the pandemic has also helped us to reach them in different ways. We had to become very inventive in how we continue to connect with each other. Because, of course, face-to-face meetings were far less possible than they were before the lockdowns. So we developed a lot of different type of media. So we went omni-channel, I would say, with our team members. And we still do that today because it turned out that you reach so many more people when they want to connect with you as well, which is very important. So they're doing well, struggling sometimes with the workload, but life is getting a bit more back to normal. So happy that they get a break.
So when we think about customer experience of Federal Express, I mean, I personally think about obviously like getting my packages, tracking a package is missing, everything to do with just setting expectations. Can you just talk about what you think about when you think of the customer experience of your brand? Where does it start? Where does it end?
Well, the customer experience actually starts when someone, an individual or a company wants to ship something and is looking for companies that are specialized in that. So it really starts from that join moment, the moment you start to connect or even research joining an organization for its product or for its services. So we really develop journeys with our customers from start through to the invoicing, and sometimes through to the re-engage. And that is really interesting. That's what I love doing, because you go to the horse's mouth and they tell you precisely what it is that they think they need. And then the art is really to translate that into what delivers value to them. So, especially for an organization like ours, we don't sell a physical product that you can touch and that you can feel. It's a commitment to deliver a service. So, if something goes wrong, we operate a lot of planes. There could be an engine that has to be replaced, or it's bad weather. So, there's a lot of outside circumstances that don't always work in our favor. But then the key is to be very proactive, to be very transparent, and to be absolutely timely in terms of information provision, because customers that use us tend to ship high value goods, and therefore every shipment is important, and for us every shipment is a customer.
So, Chris, when we think about customer experience, it's really a term that has gained so much traction in the last few years. Prior to that, your role might have been called VP of Customer Service. Can you just talk about what customer experience looks like in your role? What is your scope? And just really set the vision for our audience who might not know exactly what you do.
Yeah, so very interesting actually, that customer experience now is becoming very important, where frankly the only purpose of an organization is to serve its customers. That's the purpose. Make a customer, keep it, and grow your business. So it is a little bit ironic that in this day and age this is now getting so much attention. But it is getting so much attention because thanks to a lot of innovation in technology, information, we can absolutely, from an organization perspective, much better scale up, I would say, the customer experiences that perhaps in the past the happy few customers got, who have a certain spend or are of a certain strategic importance. Now you can really deliver that type of service very cost effectively because of the big data and the cloud environment that you can operate in, where our teams, for instance, can see in flight what's happening with shipments. So in the past, of course, we could see what's happening with an aircraft, but not necessarily what's happening with the parcel in that aircraft. And now we get real-time data. So immediately, if something should go amiss in a supply chain, we are notified, or we can see it on our screen, and we can intervene and still deliver on time. So the technologies, I have to say, is what has brought customer experience back to the forefront, because you can become so much more customer-centric at the right cost, where in the past that was sometimes a bit preventative. Now, customer service, customer experience, it's the same thing at the end of the day. It depends on the product that you sell as well, and in our case it is the same thing, but there's more sophistication in the role now. So you really start from the customer needs rather than what is the product need or what is the underlying requirement. It's really, once you are a customer, what is your primary need? So what is your expectation over and above getting the product that you pay for? What makes you a loyal customer? What makes you come back? And ironically, in our industry, when a customer experiences an issue, and again, as I said, there are many factors that play a role in whether a parcel gets delivered on time or not. But if you recover from an issue better than your competitors do, a customer that experiences an issue and gets a really good recovery tends to become more loyal than a customer that never experiences an issue. And that's simply being part of the industry. But what I describe in terms of what's important for customer experience for FedEx will be something completely different for any other organization. So I think industry-wide there's similarities, but then of course each brand also has its own culture in how it focuses on the customer and on the customer journeys. But for me, the breakthrough is really that the dream in terms of servicing every single customer as if they are an individual, and I'm talking about millions of customers a day, is now possible because of the breakthroughs in technology, in artificial intelligence, and in big data.
So everybody listening and watching would just love the chance to really understand what data metrics you are looking at. What does your dashboard look like every day? What kinds of things are you looking for in the data? Would you be willing to share that with us?
Yes, of course. So it depends on the size of the customer and on what type of shipments that they send. So let me talk about the most specific that I can give, which is probably the healthcare market, where the word in itself says you need to take care of this industry. So vaccine distribution is a very good example of that, where FedEx, of course, played a significant role. Now, those vaccines had to be delivered on time in perfect condition. And they were not just packed in any old packaging, they were temperature controlled, they had a certain lifespan, and of course the world was watching, so that sometimes adds additional pressure as well. So from that perspective, you truly focus then in on what is the product, what is the nature of the product, and what does that product need in terms of extra care. And that's where we then start to generate data. And we get that data because we use all the newest technology, like surround technology, which is an individual tag that we put on that parcel. So we track the parcel real time. And if anything happens, we can intervene in terms of top of dry ice, that type of stuff. So that's the most sensitive. To you're sending a birthday present to your niece and we have 4 days to get it there, then we will get an alert should we see that the parcel has not arrived at the station at a certain moment in time where we would expect it, so we can look at it and understand what's happening. But we can still give you that personalized service where probably in the past it was more there for the largest customers. And that's what excites me really about the new technology, that it makes individual experiences and personal experiences in a business-to-business relationship very possible and very affordable. And it's still people servicing people at the end of the day.
So you are in Europe. You said that it's an evening and you're in Amsterdam. I mean, obviously you work for a global company. I'd be interested just from your own personal perspective, what is the difference between the approach, if there is one, to customer experience as opposed to in the US?
Well, first of all, of course, when you deal with Europe, you deal with many different markets, many different cultures, and many different flavors. So where I think in the US, same thing, there are many different cultures, there are many different accents, there are many different habits. At the same time, expectations of consumers and businesses around the service that they get is pretty consistent. At least for our industry, it's very, very consistent. Where in Europe, individual markets may put something slightly above something else in terms of what's most needed of what they care about most. So it's dealing with those local, I would call them cultural differences, whereas the process or the product or service is actually rather consistent. So what I've noticed in the US is I think marketing much more stronger component of customer experience, rightfully so, especially in the design of the journeys, in the targeting of what is the right journey for the right customer. I think the Europeans are a little bit more focused on how do we execute this now end to end. So it is a real seamless experience, and no matter how complex your organization is, we have to simplify it for our end customer. So you do see nuances, but that's also what I like about working in a global organization, except for the times, because very often we will be in global meetings, and then it is about this time that we have the conversation. So that's the downside. The upside is that you learn a lot from the various cultures in what truly differentiates an organization versus what is a myth. And I really like the international flavor of the role, and still making it work with the FedEx brand, and that is also important.
So obviously there's so much change happening in the world with the pace of technology and trends, e-commerce. How much do you pay attention to what is coming on the horizon as it relates to getting people products as far as change and trends?
Well, what is very, very obvious is that next to delivering physical parcels, we will start to deliver a lot of insight and a lot of information to our customers, which we now can do easily, again, because of the advance of big data and our collaboration with Microsoft, for instance, where from a cloud perspective, we are exploring a lot of opportunities to provide our own customers with far better insight in their supply chain. We are the experts in moving stuff from A to B for them. They should be the experts in how easy the setup should be or how cost effective it can be. And there our data can help them, but it can also help them to reduce waste from the supply chain. And that is where the real partnership starts. When you start to add value over and above the physical service that you deliver, that's when loyalty as well starts to kick in. So insight for sure, but not only for our customers, also for our team members. And again, the type of proactivity I speak about now, we push a button and actually we can see everything real time. When I started in this industry 32 years ago, if it wasn't in the system, it didn't exist, basically.
Right.
So the evolution in terms of insight is phenomenal, and especially that it is real time, so there's no data lag. So the end customer can follow their parcel if that is the service that they've chosen. The shipper can do so as well, and we can. So we can partner and intervene when and where we have to, which thankfully is not that often. But when we have to, it means that the parcel must be delivered on time, and then we pull out all stops to make sure that happens. But also, I can say that next to the insight for customers and the ease of use for our team members, the insight for our team members is great as well, because they start to have conversations rather than focusing on a transaction, which they still have to do, of course. They're really there building relationships and understanding the real need of that customer over and over again. And that's what I find quite fascinating, actually.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, Chris, you're responsible for B2B and B2C customers. And so those needs are very different. So you're talking about using data insights to consider both groups, whether that's supply chain issues for B2B or for B2C. You mentioned somebody's expecting a birthday present and being able to track that. So it sounds like on the horizon, you're still looking to innovate with data, and that will not stop.
No, that won't stop unless all of a sudden the advance in data and the advance in data science stops. And insight is good as long as it is really used to improve your service, improve your relationship, just make it better. It is not good if it is abused or if you start to use data for different purposes that you shouldn't be using it for. And we are very strict in that. Of course, we hold ourselves to all the data privacy laws, which are actually sometimes stricter outside of the US than they are in the US. But we use the insight to be able to predict where the customer may need help, where we need to watch out for, and overall, it's just delivering a better service. So that advance, no, we're definitely not going to give that up. There's multiple applications that we are still developing to make it also easier for our operators, because what people sometimes don't understand, you send one parcel, with you millions send one parcel a day. So this is millions of parcels that go through very sophisticated sort systems and routing systems. And once that train is out of the station, it's very difficult to stop it, because that's not what it's designed to do. It's designed to move as fast as possible and deliver your parcel as fast as possible. So the intervention is actually sometimes more complex than what people give it credit for, as we don't look at a customer on an aircraft. It's a piece of parcel or a freight on an aircraft with a manifest. And you have to be able to connect those two. And now again, with the big data we can, and therefore we can start to intervene in flight. And that is the next level of innovation for sure.
You mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that the company has always been customer-centric. How would you say that customer-centric leadership, like what does that look like from the other leaders, even above you at the organization? What does that look like?
Well, it starts with belief. It starts with believing that if you truly deliver a great service to your customers, you'll become more profitable and you grow faster. Now, that has been proven over and over and over again, so I think the belief is there. But it's understanding your purpose. The purpose of FedEx is not to run networks, not to have another aircraft up in the air or add another truck. It is there to connect the businesses around the world, from super sensitive and urgent material to less urgent material. So in that sense, it has a social role to play. It sometimes has a humanitarian role to play. We do that often, and we do that with pride. Or it has a crisis role to play, as you saw in the pandemic. So people that work at FedEx are truly, truly passionate about the purpose of the company that they work for and the role that they play in that. So that type of culture that is difficult to emulate. And that is truly a differentiator. So people rally behind that. But as leaders and as most senior leaders, we have to walk the talk. So we truly have to empower. If a customer complains and they want to speak to us, our door has to be as open as the doors of all the people in the organization, whether that is the CEO down to the driver. And everyone is truly convinced of the role that they play in advocating for customers, improving service for customers, because that's the only reason why we exist. So that's the starting point. And from that starting point, the art is actually to keep things very simple. Our business is rather complex, but the journey of a customer should be very simple. And if the driver can explain to any customer what the journey is that you use when you buy our products and services, then you know that everyone really lives customer experience, and they do. And I'm very proud of the people at FedEx for sure.
So, Chris, you said it's a belief. You said that, yes, of course, we know that if you invest in customer experience, you'll get a return. But funny enough, when I take this message all over to events and I meet people, that's the thing they struggle with the most is how do we prove the ROI? How do I convince my colleagues and leadership that we should invest in treating our customers better? So how have you been able to track the direct link between investing in customer experience and the return that you get?
Well, for us, of course, customer retention is absolutely key because we have contracts with very large organizations, but you also have a lot of small and mid-sized shippers and very occasional shippers that don't sign a contract. So the key is not just to make a customer, it's to keep the customer and to grow with the customer. That you can only do when you really deliver the right after service. Now, the question is it charity? Is it affordable? Or what is it going to cost me if I'm not so nice to my customers? And when I say not so nice, what I mean is the basics have to be there. Your product and service, whatever you sell, that has to be delivered. But that doesn't differentiate you anymore from the competition, or someone else tomorrow copies the product that you just launched today. So products are being copied so frequently that you truly have to find a differentiator that keeps customers coming back to you as an organization. So the ROI, and it's expressed as an industry term, is in the Net Promoter Score. So how many customers would recommend you and how many customers would increase their share of wallet with you. And you really test that by asking them very pertinent questions, first on what's most important to them in the area that they care about the most when they choose transport. And you design your product and service around that, and then you ask for the satisfaction. And frankly, when we've looked at the ROI, we measure that by, remember the time when we dropped in the Net Promoter Score because we had an operational issue or a quality issue or a product launch didn't go very well. We immediately see that back in our P&L in terms of repurchase of our small and mid-sized customers. So it's not a myth. You can prove it if you have the will to put the right metric against them financially. From a marketing and growth and market perspective, but predominantly financially, because the purpose of a business, and especially a publicly listed one, is to make money. So it's not just about delivering a great service, it's about delivering a great service in an affordable way, a personal way that makes the customer come back.
I'm going to ask you one last question before we get into the fun rapid fire piece. What if your best customers just don't have time to fill out a Net Promoter Score, or they just don't want to? What do you do then?
Yes, no. No. And it's a very relevant question because you can get survey fatigue for sure if you're a bit unlucky. We tend to first of all ask permission when we close the customer, and we ask them how frequently they want to participate. If they want to opt out, they can always opt out. And we do it in many different ways. We have the traditional survey, I would say, but we also do post-transaction, a very quick pulse. How happy were you with this service? And how happy were you with the person that helped you? And we use that for coaching purposes, but it of course gathers a lot of data over time. And data is one thing, doing something with that data, that's the key. And a lot of companies really have to get going with not just surveying your customer, but doing something about what it is that they're saying.
All right. Well, this has been really interesting, and I always love hearing about what's happening across the pond. So thank you for being here. Let's talk about the rapid fire questions so our audience can get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready to take some quick questions, Chris?
Sure.
All right, Chris, starting. You might not remember because it was so long ago, but first question, what did you eat for breakfast today?
Banana.
All right. What is your idea of perfect happiness?
My grandchildren.
What is one mental health strategy that you use for managing hard days?
I can do this.
I like that. What is your favorite type of vacation?
Seaside.
If you could have lunch with anyone dead or alive, who would it be?
Ooh, dead or alive. Ooh. That's good. It's that dead piece that that is not good. Bruce Springsteen. Let's go for life.
Okay, cool. If you had to describe your outlook in one quick motto, what would it be?
Life is what you make it.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the Modern Customer Podcast. If people want to learn more about you, are you okay with them contacting you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you for being here, everybody. You've been tuning into the Modern Customer Podcast. If you have time on iTunes, please leave me a review so more people can find this growing podcast. Until next time, thank you for tuning in.